Good morning everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in a previous video you would have seen me start this project. It's going to be a gift, and what I want to do is just get it started so that when my friend gets it, she can just sit, relax and stitch and then carry on. And I guess it's sort of just a hint of what my vision is for the piece, and then it'll be interesting to see what she does with the piece. So it's like getting a kit, but I've done a little bit of stitching on it just to sort of set the tone or set the story. So in the previous video I sort of gave you a bit of an overview where I was heading. I'm creating a patched piece of sashiko stitching with some little decorative pockets throughout it, some general stitching of boro, running stitch, just meandering, playing. I've probably gone about, how far have I gone in? I think the piece is about 1 metre. I'm probably 12 inches, but even then I've sort of stopped doing too much detail because that, you know, can carry on and then the piece will continue. So before I get into the next step, after I finished filming and I sat and stitched a little bit more, that got rid of all the pins. I then wound onto a bobbin 3 of the threads that I think will go with the piece, maybe highlight stitching or just general stitching. 2 of them are variegated. One is the block navy. I'm using just pearl crochet cotton, just the basic. That's my go-to. I use it just about in everything. So I'll get her a roll of that because she'll need every bit of it. I've got my fabrics that are left to finish the project put aside, and then the cherry blossoms. Now in the last video, because I had a scrap of this, this is a Tilda Woodland is the name of it. The details are in the description. I started just cutting out, fussy cutting out some of those little cherry blossoms, and I was not sure if I wanted to open this. Now what's this one? Strawberry Jam Flowerful Vines. If anyone's wondering, I just don't know a lot about this little guy, but anyway, we'll get to that. So that's the little fabric bundle. I did get us some needles. I've got the thread ready, and I've also wound off some of the twine that I'm going to use for the vine or the branch. The other thing I did is I've just got some inspiration photos. Cherry blossoms. Real simple line drawings, but it gives you a bit of an idea of, they're quite a jagged little stem, and then there's like little bits coming off, little bud-like flowers. Then we've got the openness of the actual blossoms, and then this was another one. So I thought I might add those to the kit just as a little bit of inspiration. I just typed into Google line drawing or sketch line drawing cherry blossoms, and there was just heaps, and I picked 2 that sort of felt like, you know, where I was heading with it. So imagine that scooting now through. So let's start the next stage of it. So I've got myself, I thought, a bit of twine. I should have sworn I cut it off, or maybe I didn't, and then I sat down and thought, no, better turn the camera on. I've also got myself some thread to do some stitching. It's just a little vintage. Probably could do with a better colour. That's probably a bit brown. In the past I've just used that. Actually I know you'd think, oh, that's even paler, but it does work. So I might just use that to get us started. And I'll rethink that. This is an old vintage cotton, and I thought, oh, well, that'll be fine. I could add that to the little kit, but I might have to have another little look. And maybe, just in case her stitching has those stitches showing, maybe look for more of a honey tone. Now, I was sure I cut a little piece off. What would that have done with itself? Maybe I didn't. I think I pulled it out and then went, hang on, turn on the camera, you're getting ahead of yourself. So let's just get ourselves a little piece of twine. Oh, Oops, now I've just tipped the little cherry blossoms everywhere. Goodness sakes, girl. It's bound to happen. I was being so organised and keeping them tidy. Like that's going to continue. Got a few there anyway. It'll kickstart the project. I won't need that many, but at least they're there if I do get that stage happening. All right, knotted, yes. Now, I was sort of thinking it's going to be a case of couching this big guy on and then coming back and putting smaller elements on. So I think I might even, let's start it with a twist. That'd be a nice feature in that top corner. Like it's a little garland of it. I don't know. We'll just see how we go. So I'm just going to use some little stitches and bury the needle into it and stitch it on. So we're going to need a fairly thickish main trunk. Got a thread hanging in the way there. That's just going to make it look messy. So lots of little stitches in here. That secures it. Then I guess we've got to decide, do we keep it open or do we bring it in a little tighter? I'm thinking we'll bring it in a bit tighter. Maybe could even twist it. That would look rather cool. Yeah, I like that. Just adds a little bit more thickness to the main branch, and then it's thinning itself out already. That's without even dividing some threads off. So I'm just couching it on. I guess couching technically is taking the needle from one side across the item you're holding down. Like you'd come up here and go down there. That's technically couching. So I'm probably, the purists would say you're not couching, girl, you're just stitching it down. But we'll, for argument's sake, call it couching. So we've got a little loop now happening at the top. I like that. Do we keep it? Or do we push it all together? I might splay it out a little bit so it even looks thicker again. So there's a bigger branch even further up that you can't see. I love doing this. It just is so, what's the word? You feel, when you're creating a branch, you can sort of meander along with it. I find it quite creative. So I've got rid of the loop and I've just made it quite thick up there. Some stitches. That is not going anywhere. Thread my needle again. So the first stage is getting the branch happening, or some form of structure for the branch to keep coming off of. Now because I'm way up the top here, I'm going to end it off so that I can pick up further along where I started. Another piece of cotton, nice long piece of cotton. That way, I guess if I was doing embroidery, it'd be no longer than from my fingers to my elbow. But because I'm doing this type of stitching, I just want to keep going. The fibres in this sewing machine cotton are not going to be damaged by going in and out of the fabrics to the degree that a beautiful pearl cotton or a embroidery type threads and things like that. Some of them are quite delicate, so you sort of have to be a little bit careful. Now I'm just looking at how I can create a little bit of interest here. Do I want to keep the main branch? I do to a degree, and then I sort of want to head off on other tangents. I think I'm going to cut it there and keep the main branch coming along, and I'm just going to run like a tacking stitch through it at this stage, otherwise I'll be here all day. So I'm just going to contort it a little bit because cherry blossoms have that bumpy sort of look about it. It's not a smooth branch, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to do a few little tack stitches right through. Then I guess if I don't like something, I can adjust it because there's only a couple of stitches, so it's not like you've spent hours getting your branch right. So I'm just gonna keep stitching. And these bends where I've just created that bend can be another branch coming out. And that's before we break this thread down. I'll show you. We might do that next. Because it's a twisted rope, we can untwist. And it's going to be 3 ply. So you can leave 2 twisted and carry on, and then have a little guy, like a little branch coming out with one of those threads. I'm going to bring it up onto that cream piece. Whoop. Now I'm really couching. I am jumping from over the thread instead of just going through it. So now I'm going to, I think, twist that back together. We've got that one little guy out. And continue on stitching that down. So it's a really good way of getting a little branch out. I might even open it back up once I get past here a little bit. It's like pinching a little morsel out, stitch it down. And when you get a little bit further along, you can have a look at your little branch and decide, well, let's split it again. What have I done? Caught my thread underneath. So let's have a little look. Don't think I will. I'm going to leave it together. I can always come back and add more wispiness of threads to it. I sort of want it a bit thick still before I get too fine, if that makes sense. All right, now I'm just going to make my way back. Happy with that. Still reasonably thick. Got this little guy coming off. Now I'm just going to trim that back a little bit. And then I'm going to work my way back up there and just make sure that that's anchored. Otherwise I may forget and never get back there. So being that I've got a bit of thread, we'll just keep popping into all of this hessian. Lots of little stitches just to keep it into play. Now you can really go to town with these branches, even if it's not a Japanese influenced one, and you can put little bird nests into them. They're just so much fun. You can stop and start them where you want. You might not want a continuous long branch. You might bring another branch in from another angle to create interest. They really are a lot of fun. So I thought I'd film this because you guys might be inspired to start your own. So we've got a nice thick branch and it gets thinner and thinner, and then we've got, good morning Pepper, then we've got this little branch here. That wasn't Pepper, that was Bandit. Gosh, he was howling in the last video. What a circus. So this, now I'm going to tuck it in there and away we go again. Now it's needless to say I might do another little branch further back, but just take your time. Stitch in your little bits and pieces. Now there's no reason why you couldn't change to a different threaders too. You might have a narrower Hessian twine it is. I know I do somewhere, I just haven't looked it out. I will, because that'd be really pretty. Drop down into another thread. So this is going to, I think, need to kink, and then might bring it down there. Let's get a bend in it. It's very willowy. And then we're going to continue past all of that above. It is very simple. It's one of those projects that you just can keep adding to it because it's based on the whole snippet roll idea. Remember when Anne Brooks introduced these to us all in, it was 2020. We were all doing snippet rolls and she was giving us a prompt each week. They were so much fun. Probably not as much of a kink there as I would like, so I'm going to get quite kinky here and really twist it back. Once I get a bit of a foundation stitch there that'll hold it, it's better. And I don't mind how it's heading me up into that direction. Yeah, I like that. I'm going to aim for there. With this branch, and I'll keep it solid because I can always come back through and add little bits. And that can happen too at the flower stage, because you might find that the flowers just need a little bit of twig added in. Yeah, I think I'll leave it solid right through, because I can sort of see in my eye picking it up there and coming up through here with it. But it's a good start anyway. We've got to be a bit careful we don't do too much too. It's so hard. Maybe I add in that branch and then leave it at that. Sort of gets it scooting along, doesn't it? And this main branch is still ready to be attached to. So I might end my fabric off. My thread. We might do that extra branch going up. And if I use less of the twine, that'll show her, you know, the difference of splitting the thread. Okay, so let's rethread. great project to take with you if you're going away, like you're sitting on a train or a bus, or, you know, you've got a bit of travelling to do. It's tiny. You just need little bits, and you could pack it in. Just grabbing another piece. Now I might just very carefully split it. Now I could unravel it completely, or if I'm tricky enough, I could potentially leave a piece on. No, I will. I'm going to unravel it because I just want the freedom that it gives. So I'm heading in that direction. So I'm going to need a decent piece. Let's be brave. Let's take that out. And then we're going to connect the two into there. And it feels like it needs a branch down here. Like it's just, oh, it's so much fun. If you haven't done this before, you should give it a go. You don't have to use these colour tones. The main thing is you've got this branch happening, so you need to decide on what's your background and what's your flowers. And you really want your flowers to be, oh, keep pulling it through. Trying to get a bit of tightness to it. Let's just get a couple stitches in, then we'll give it a good pull so it's nice and tight. Yeah, you just need your background and your flowers to be, well, you probably don't, but I think you need them to be completely different so that the one stands out over the other. But then I guess you could blend it all and it would look great too. Whatever, do whatever you want. You'll soon see a piece of fabric and you'll go, yes, that's my starting point. Now let's get this down and see where are we heading with it. Sort of want it to be a bit contorted too. We mustn't forget that we've got this cherry blossom branches, which are a little bit rigid looking. They're not a smooth branch. So let's get a kink up here before I get too far ahead. And then back down. The good thing about this is if she decides she wants more background stitching, she can easily slither her needle in and lay down some more of the cream stitches. She might decide that there's a flower somewhere that needs a bit of stitching behind it. You just keep adding and adding. I don't think these snippet rolls are ever finished, to be honest. They just look more and more beautiful the more you add to them. I must show you one that I did that had the same principle, this meandering branch. And it started out as a floral concept, but by the time it finished, it sort of felt like it was coral with barnacles and things. I don't know. I think it's because there was so many pearls in it. I must show that to you and you'll get the general gist of where this is heading. I'm going to aim up there for that dragonfly. He'll look like he's just visiting this branch, considering landing on it. So at this point here, I could consider splitting. Can always twist it back together, but I'm thinking of splitting it. Yeah, and one of them is thicker than the other, so that's great. That gives me that. Oh, look how that twisted. It's a bit of an unusual little. Oh, I like that. I'm just going to stitch that. I don't know if that's cherry blossom or not, but I do like how that kinked and put a little twist. Makes it look interesting. Happy accident. Didn't Bob Ross say that? The guy that was painting in the 70s, he just had a TV show. He'd say a happy accident. I like that. I'll come back to that. I just want to secure the twist. I don't know if that's a cherry blossom or not, but it is rather cute. Just a little stitch in the top of that. So you can see how we're building it up. Just a little stitch up there. And that's not going to go anywhere then. Then we might scoot back down here. Get this where I divided the threads with a couple little stitches just to hold you in place. And it is twisting out a little bit, so I'm going to just give it a little twist and then stitch. I don't want it to come apart because we're getting to the end of a branch, so it actually needs to be a bit finer. Now we need a kink, I think. So let's kink it down. And then twist it. Kink it back up. And then we'll trim it because we're starting to encroach on the little dragonfly, so we don't want to do that. So now I'm putting a terminating stitches there. I think that'll be enough fine edge. And we'll end that off. It's fiddly, but it's not really. It's just a case of lots of little stitches to secure your they're like my favourite little stitches, and they're getting so blunt so quickly. I suppose I cut a lot of thread, but gee, I'd love to get them sharpened. I'll have to do a bit of research and find out who around me does that, because they're just so handy. They're nice and heavy. They're a real heavy little set, so I find them good in my hand. Okay. Now I'm just going to snip that away. I'm going to snip that away. So there we go. Terminating little end. Now then you can get these little pieces and start connecting them in, which I think I will. I'm going to put that there. So I might just twist it a little. Slide it into position. Needle and thread. Couple little stitches to really secure it, make it look like it's blended into that branch that's already there, and then away you go again. It's as simple as that. You can see how you can just lose yourself in branches. Now we've got to get this kinked look about it. And I guess you can go as detailed as you want on your branches. You might decide that this is enough. You might decide that you want to come back through with a different size twine. You can then even come back with needle and thread and some crochet cotton, so like a number 8, and add some more stitches and some buds, and like it's, you know, really fun. That's why the piece can literally grow and grow. I just want to twist that just a little bit so that it's finer, and then stitch it down. Okay. One little twig coming off the main branch, so it's starting to soften the features. Okay, let's end that off. So what we'll do now, so halfway through, so I've got plenty of time, is I'm just going to tack down, because I'm not going to go through the embellishing stages yet, because it's really is about tacking down your little flowers. So what I'm going to do is, because he's very round, I'm just going to rough him up a little bit. He's a little bit too perfect. Probably overthinking it, but I want that shape to be a little bit more like a flower. So I've just nibbled into him a little bit, and then it's a case of stitch him down. Near the branch, on the branch, above the branch, doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to use one stitch, because then we can come back through and have a think of what can happen in the center of them. Does that make sense? So one little stitch, then I'm going to move my needle up a little bit. I might grab one of these little guys, straight through the middle, and thread him on. And that's as simple as it gets. Oops, I pulled it through. So then I might look for an even smaller little flower, like that little guy. And he can pop in there as well with one little stitch. So that's why when you start to lay down your flowers, you might decide you need a little branch to pop out underneath that cluster of flowers. So you can come back and add branches and twigs, and it's just get it started, and then you can sort of come back and look at a little area and go, no, it needs, you know, so much more. With that one little stitch, you can even sort of rough them up a little bit, a couple little folds, and they start looking dimensional. So I really do think I need to sneak into this. I wasn't sure if I would, but I feel like I need to. And get ourselves a little piece. There's 3. See, there's even a bud there. Look how good that bud is. How many buds are in it? Not many. Yeah, don't worry about the bud. He's going to be too hard to source. I've cut 3 out. 4, 5. There's a good cluster of them. Look at that lot there. So where I started to cut, there was only a few. You're not even on camera, Corrine. Good on you. There's a good cluster of them. There's plenty. There's heaps. Heaps and heaps on that. Okay. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to fussy cut out these few. And that's the big guy. Make sure I get rid of all the yellow, because it would stand out, I think, having that yellow. So let's get rid of the background fabric. So you've got a couple choices here. You could leave these in a cluster, or you could break it down even more so they're individuals. Let's cut it out as a cluster first and see what that, because these little guys can be quite a tight little group of flowers. That might make it interesting. That little guy is missing half of his flower. Oh, I don't mind that. Let's see how overpowering it is, but it might be too much for the piece. Don't mind it if he came off and then a few of these little guys joined them just to break it up a little. Could create quite a little. Let's cut this one out as well. You see the potential? And I guess if you were doing something other than a Japanese inspired, those little yellow flowers would look really pretty through it as well. But not today. We don't need little yellow flowers. So that guy, I'm thinking I'm going to add to that cluster up there. So let's stitch him down. He's a definite. So that shows examples of little individual flowers being grouped. So imagine all them with a bead or a stitch or a French knot or some little stamens. Like that's like the next stage of it, starting to make them look like cherry blossoms. There's hours of work in this project. This will keep her busy. It will keep her busy. And she can take it away from the weekend and continue on with it. Okay. So this, I'm sort of thinking I might leave that into a bigger piece. I wonder, I might disconnect that just to get a bit of air in there. It looked a bit too simplistic. It'll be more interesting if we maybe have the 3 and then these 2 we can do something else with. Let's get them down. Yeah, no, we'll continue. I was just thinking, should I divide them? But no, I think it'll make it feel a little bit different instead of it just being lots of little flowers. Let's put that little guy there. And then we might come down here and put one of those plain pink ones. Just going to cut him out a little bit more. Try not to overthink it. But this might be a good starting point. So we've got this quite large predominant cluster happening. I might put in maybe a little fellow again. Lovely. Now I might jump, I'll just put a couple stitches in there. And I'm going to jump over to here on that branch and put in little fella. Then maybe, I think I need to get rid of that half flower. It's just, maybe we build that there. So we've just got that bit of a gap. Gee, they look like cherry blossoms to me. Yeah, I like that. Then we might scoot a little bit further along our branch and maybe put in, well, maybe he could go in, but we disguise that he's a half guy. Yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll have his petals pointing up, like so. Oops, come back out the point of which I entered. And get him stitched there. And then we'll tuck into the bottom of him either this guy, oops, that guy, yeah, just to have a few layers. And that's really is disguising that he is a little half flower. I might just lower that a little bit because we can have then a little bit more of that fellow behind poking through. No need cover him completely. Okay, so then out here, see how it just keeps going, like it just is so addictive. We can pop him. So little cherry blossoms going across the piece. And like I said, she might decide that she just wants this type of thing popping up every so often. This is really just to, I guess, give her a quick snapshot of the project. And then she can say, oh, I want to just scatter them, or I love the cherry blossoms, and she just covers it in cherry blossoms. So now let's have a look at some beads. We've got 15 minutes left. I don't think I'll do another video on this project. I'll hand it over to her and then she can, you know, go her hardest. Now what I do want to do is get my my beads out. So we could do some little pink beads, or blue, or purple, red, like, see there's some little white beads, some little red beads, some little pink beads. It really is. I'm taking them to a bead shop, my favorite bead shop. Look at those. They're like more of a white. So there's an opportunity that maybe I just stitch the odd little bead on, and then she can decide what she likes. And I know that those all came from that shop. So just looking through. Nothing there. That does nothing for me. I could probably do a little mix of beads, but then she might decide she wants more of a simple look. These are all blues. No. Well, she might like it. No. No. Gosh, colour. I love colours and how they work together or not. No. See what I mean? Like, gosh, and she might decide that she does a wash of gold and greens through. I think what I'll do is I'm not going to put any beads on it. When she gets here, I'm going to sit her down with my bead tray, and she has a bit of a feel through them all and has a think about her colours. And then when we get to the bead shop, we'll have a better idea of what her piece might need. She might be really what I would call elegant and just use the red and the cream. But then she might want to bounce this up a little bit and start adding, like I could just see golds and, yeah, pink in some of them. And that's before you start getting some different threads and start putting some little stamens in them, like even some turkey work where it's all fluffy, because they have, see, they have this going on. So we could do some turkey work into them so that it's this little, and if that was like even a gold thread or a beige thread, and it's all fluffy in the center of some of them. Oh, the potentials. I'm going to sneeze, guys. I'm going to go and grab the piece that I was talking about a minute ago. Now, I've unpacked all my beads and made a hang of a mess. So let's just take a moment. How are we going for time? We've got plenty of time. Let's get the bead trays back in. If anyone doesn't know what these are, Amazon Elizabeth Ward is the brand, but they're very expensive. So if you go hunting now, you will find others that are making them. So if you're an Aussie girl, Craft Online has them, and they're half the price. And I've noticed a few comments on previous videos from other watchers who have picked them up in their country as well. So I'd say Elizabeth Ward and Amazon have had their time of obviously gouging people, and now other companies are coming in with a version of, and I've got the mix here of the two, and I'm finding it very difficult to be able to tell you which was which now. They're so similar. One seems to have that and the other one doesn't. So that could be Elizabeth Ward, because I seem to have the majority of the other ones. Have I put all my beads away? I've been very good and tidied up, but how quickly it can get messy. All right. Whoop. So that's the plan. I won't go the next step with beads. She might hate beads. She might find beads are a little bit difficult to do for her eyesight. Like, we just don't know, do we? So that lid goes on there. See that hole? See the hole? That could be the Elizabeth Ward one. It's really quite firmly closed. Where the other one, which I'm guessing is the cheaper version, it just clicks on. I'd say that's the story. Alrighty. Now, what I was wanting to show you is my finished one. Now, I made this ages ago. And it's the same principle. You will see in amongst all of that is my little twig. See where it's coming along and it fans out. So I laid down all of that first. Then I started embellishing it with Suffolk puffs or yo-yos and bits of lace. Then I went back through and started beading, and I just followed the lines of pearls and gems and things like that. So you can see how it can get quite thick really quickly. I should show her that too, so she, I guess, can decide just how much she wants to go. Being that it's a Japanese styling, probably less is more would be my theory. So I haven't stitched that, and I haven't stitched the little, this little guy. I'll leave that for her. Yeah, I won't do the beads. Yeah. There's some thread for her to use. Okay, that's a good start. I think that will call done for me. If that doesn't inspire her and get her going on her journey, I think it will. I think it will. And if she keeps looking at these, that's before you start thinking about the buds and what could be used for those. See how there's little sprays coming out of there? Like, just that picture alone is, yeah, I might just include that picture purely as the inspiration, because there's a lot going on in that. Yeah, okay. All right, thank you for joining me. So that's part 2 of this video. I'll leave it at that. I won't be doing any more with this. Whether in the future I do one of my own, possibly, who knows. It is a lot of fun. So now I can just roll all this up on the bobbin. That's it. And then I'll put a little ribbon around it, and she will be greeted by that. And a little tie. Gosh, she might decide she wants to add lace too. Like, you just don't know, do you? And look, it looks great viewed top or bottom. All right. Okay. Thanks everyone for joining me. Thoroughly enjoyed having a little itty bitty play. And you know, the beautiful thing about this is I don't actually have to finish it. Isn't that good? I can move on to the next adventure. Gosh, gotta love that. All right, guys, look after yourselves, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.